Hey everyone, my name is Corey, and we are back on pantheonmmo.com/game. And tonight I just wanted to talk about characters and the races. So let's scroll down here. We kind of been going through this. This is their game page, and we've made it down to make your character your own. Are you a laser-focused damage dealer or a heroic healer who keeps your party alive? Are you the damage-absorbing tank, or do you prefer to orchestrate encounters by crowd control? Choose from 9 distinct races and 12 compelling classes with unique skill sets to venture alone or to support a group. Nice. I like how they mentioned the unique skill sets because that goes into, their limited action sets that I've talked about in another video. And let's go up and talk about the races. That's what we're here to do today. Alright, the races of Terminus. Nearly 1,000 years ago, the first of 9 races were brought to Terminus, an ancient planet ruled by Rock Nilthamos, the Dragon King. I probably butchered that. Bound together by the mystery of their arrival, the races broke apart after the War of the Gods threatened their very existence. Now, after a millennia of searching, the secrets of this world remain buried like bones beneath skin. Alright. And it looks like there is room for future races, so that's cool. Let's start off with the Archai. I think that's how it's pronounced. Constructed as slaves suited to the deadliest environments, Archai manifest their freedom in celebration and battle. So they were made as slaves. I mean, just you gotta hand it to him. The artwork is awesome. These guys look awesome. Alright, the Archai. Bred as the ultimate of the slaves, the diverse and vigorous Archai manifest their freedom in celebration and battle. On the Archai. On the spectrum of uniqueness, the Archai comes second only to their neighbor Gnomes. So, they are pretty out there. Look at this. This guy's got like a frozen hand and a molten hand. This chick, she seems to be all about... Well, actually, she's got this purple stuff. She's got like ice and purple. Alright. But in a sharp contrast, the culture of Suroa is as vibrant and strong as the massive crystals and ores of its geology. Wait, so these guys are like made out of the rock? Devout and sincere archaic bodies manifest their environment, their ethereal energy bonding with natural elements at a very young age. Oh, so they're like created and then get infused with like molten rock or icy rock or whatever or something. That's really cool. Devout and sincere archaic bodies manifest their environment, their ethereal energy bonding with natural elements at a very young age. Okay, yeah, I read that. This permits the Archai to grow a bit larger than a human or elf, so they're pretty big, but not suffer in agility quite like an ogre. Oh, so they get to be like really tall, but still like move quicker, be more agile. Loving celebration and battle almost equally, the Archai are positioned well to ascend in the Frail Age, should they choose. Of their tale. Torn from the ancient crystalline planet of Roa, the Archai were originally created from another race of pure magical energy called the Aoin. Aoin? Aoin. They were created... Oh, so they were created from just a magical energy source, which is the Aoin. These innocent beings were tragically deconstructed and recomposed by the vile followers of Ro's dark celestial lord and bred as a nation of slaves. Well, that sucks. Thus were born the Archai, a name bestowed by their similarly oppressed alchemic builders to honor the last lineage of their ancestor Aoin. Aoin? It's probably Eowyn. This desecration wrought the new race with unique abilities, however. Archai were able to graft in the elemental nature from the region of Roa, where their life of slavery would begin. When water, fire, wind, or any mineral like copper or iron or silver, stuff like that. Gold. Ooh. Could have gold Archai, and then I mean, these are kind of, I mean, they're constructed, right? So they're like golems almost. Let's see. Is infused into the young Archai, their weaker arcane core acclimates according to those inherent properties. These manifest in magnificent open striations, markings, and textures, whether of flame, liquid, heavy vapors. Oh, well, I guess this is kind of showing it. You can just be like walking around and your character is like just got this vapor cloud around them. Or even precious metals and minerals. Okay. This selection takes place in the childhood of the Archai in a devout ceremony called True Birth. So they're kind of like born and they don't really have any special properties, but as they get older, it's kind of like their coming of age. When they get old enough, they can kind of infuse with kind of whatever's around them. Do they get to choose? When water is infused, I wonder if they get to choose, or if they're just like, or if it just, whatever happens to be nearby just gets infused into them. Interesting. Yet the Archai heritage is not one of enslavement, but valor, uprising, and celebration. On Roa, they waged a clandestine war of liberation, billowing into a nation of indomitable warriors, and overthrowing their captors to utter defeat long ago. On Terminus, they are renowned for their culture of endurance, poise, and intrepidness, as well as a robust legacy of jubilation, song, and display. They are said to entice danger like sport, while their people thrive on the wildly diverse island realm of Suroa, which means little home. So they started on a different planet, and then they came to Terminus. And Terminus is where the game is set. It's like the world that the game is set on. But these guys came from Roa. Okay, cool. Let's look at their racials. Living Reservoir. Mana drain effects are reduced by X%. Nice. So, able to keep mana better, so maybe better for mage classes, or, well, I guess any class with mana. Effervescent. Immune to effects that drain endurance. Really? Interesting. Elemental Attunement. Grants a bonus to the effectiveness of elemental-based abilities based on attunement. Fire, water, wind, earth. So at character creation, you'll choose one of these to attune to, I bet. You probably choose fire, water, wind, or earth, and you just get bonus. Grants a bonus to the effectiveness. I guess this is cool. So if you wanted to focus, like if you wanted to, well, does it say what classes it can be? I don't know. It doesn't say. If they can be like a wizard, and then they're like, I want to be a fire wizard, and then, oh, I'll be an Archai that's like fire attuned, and I'll get, a bonus to all my fire abilities. That's really cool. Natural Acclimation. Innate bonus to acclimation score based on elemental attunement. Fire to Scorching. Okay, so Scorching is like the climate, right? Water, frigid, wind shear, earth, toxic. Oh, that's cool. That just helps you acclimate to those areas better so that you can go into higher tiers of those climates at an earlier stage than others. Archai have an advantage against the playful disposition. So yeah, we talked about dispositions in the combat video. Very cool. So playful. Not sure how that's going to affect the enemy AI, but that's really interesting. All right, Darkmere is next. Let's go over there. There's quite a bit more. Okay, Darkmere. Even in brokenness, the Mere are a proud, masterful race. But while, they look like fish people. Are they mermaids? But while their majesty transcends the waters, they've yet to escape its bitter depths. Are they like Naga? Interesting. On the Darkmere. Out of their own way, the Darkmere of Sironai would perhaps become a contemporary of Thronefast, even its chief rival. Ooh. Thronefast. I think that's where the humans are, so are these guys just going to be... Is it going to be hard for if I want to be human and my friend wants to be a Darkmere to play together because of faction differences, maybe? But their native beauty, valor, and nobility have rusted down to bitter ornaments. A vast disdain for other races lurks beneath their tranquil surface, calling none friend and few honored as foe. Their ferocity in battle is as ancient as their heralded origin, while their tall, slender form and ghostly eyes. Oh, cool. So are they going to have like little glowing effects? That'd be cool. Or are they just going to be like transparent? Cast an unmistakable presence. Darkmere ambitions are a pregnant mystery. Pregnant? Or a pregnant mystery. Interesting description there. Their kingdom quietly advancing on land and sea. Of their tale. The Mere hail from the planet of Isul, the race born at a time when her oceans were dying. Wars between ancient leviathans, so like big krakens and sea squid or whatever, just huge underwater beasts, had erupted beneath the waves in battles so fierce even kingdoms on land were destroyed. But the gods of Isul did not stop the calamity, fighting with each other instead of giving aid. Oof. At last, one humble goddess named Sironai begged the spirit of Isul for answers. Begged the spirit of Isul. The planet. So, like, So Sironai is asking the planet for help, for aid. Manifesting herself in the depths, Isul... Oh. So this planet has like a soul, basically? Isul? Isul gave Sironai a sacred gift, power to bring forth a single new creation. With this gift, Sironai fashioned the Mere, a race with kingly hearts and furious might. The Mere struck against the Leviathans with abandon, breaking them from war and driving the terrors back into their abysses. With the oceans liberated, the gods came together to bless and rule over the Mere. Songs beneath the sea declared that the Mere carried the heartbeat of Isul herself, and the race flourished under a unified pantheon. Yet of all the gods, Sironai remained their first love. Well, why would they care about any of the other gods? Like, the other gods didn't even care. Sironai should be their only love, right? And maybe that's what this is suggesting. In the chaos of their arrival, the Mere were poured into Terminus's lush seas. I wonder... So... It must be some sort of, like, portal. It's just like, okay, Isul just is, like, up here, and Terminus is right here, and Isul's like, okay, just pours out the Mere into these oceans of... But the water worked through their bodies like poison, and they could not breathe in it. That's cool. They're not just automatically attuned to the water of this new planet. In an attempt to save the race, Nithir, the god of battle, sacrificed his body. The god of battle. Is this one of the gods that the Mir worshipped? Is this a god from Isil? Let's see. Nithir, the god of battle, sacrificed his body, which was composed of Isil's native seas, creating a breathable sphere of water within the ocean. Such a mighty gift, yet tragically fleeting as the waters soon mixed again. Even so, Nithir's closest followers... Okay, so the Mir just did care about other gods. Would not move a fin or flinch muscle. Though they drown, their allegiance would not succumb. So they're just being stubborn? They're just like, I'm not gonna try to live? Wait. Even so, would not move. So they're just like, so instead of like trying to like find a way to survive or live, they just decided to stand there. As I lay with my face against the sands, I saw the Nithirian guard with their twin tridents grasped for battle, hovering below the surface. In my near paralysis, face half under the water and one eye above, I betook the whole of them in perfect battle formation, firm against the death burning up within their bodies. So yeah, they're dying. I saw their skin turn red as the breath dried out of them in the acrid underwater breeze, their pose unyielding as statues. I could only lie still, my body just beginning to lose the deep cold. To loose? Is that what they mean? Deep cold of a life beneath the waves. Oh no, I am just reading that wrong. My body just beginning to lose the deep cold of a life beneath the waves. Yet I could not stop from weeping. To lose the deep cold of a life. From the testimony of Amorthous Osir. That sentence has got me just beginning to lose. Okay, I'm losing the life. Okay, I get it. With her people still in harm's keep, Sirenai rushed to help the Mir, concentrating her power to transform and adapt the bodies she had created long ago. Yet mysteriously, her aid was kept at bay. Why? Sirenai rushed to help the Mir, concentrating her power. Dang. Sickened with grief as she watched her people perishing, the brave goddess gambled on another, more perilous chance, leveraging the essence of her immortality to recreate the Mir anew, even giving them a lung by which to breathe on land and legs with which to walk. In a brilliant moment of sacrifice, the miraculous exchange saved the Mir, transforming them forever. But as the exhausted high mortal collapsed on the shore of Terminus, the crisis she averted wrought a fate far worse. So, Sirenai gave up her immortality as a goddess, right? Became a high mortal. And so why did her powers not work before she gave up her immortality? It's a good question, I think. I don't know the answer to that. I gasped when I saw the first warrior break the surface, the air silent but for the cry of his assault. Yet soon there were dozens leaping from the surf, all descending upon Sirenai. Sirenai? I think I've been interchanging that. Our Lady helpless as her devoted, helpless as a fish warming on a poacher's deck before he rips it open. Okay, so these gods are actually like beings that the races are interacting with. They're not just this kind of force, I guess, in the background. Huh. Cool. So she's actually, like, physically present. Nighthird's guard tore into her as if she were a threat, vengeance raw and without gratitude. In their hearts, Sirenai had participated in her own slaughter by violating their bodies as mere and as warriors. What? So she gives up her immortality and saves the whole race of people, and they just slaughter her? She had dishonored them. Ugh. And far too late we understood just how prepared to die our protector brothers had been. Well, that's sad. These we now call the Nithirian Red, though I've heard the name Dreadmere used as well. Ooh, hopefully that's a monster in the game that I can go kill. I can only attest to the sounds of their savagery, for I could not even move my face as the surf rolled with perfect calm over my nose and mouth, though I dare not drown, for such a twisted fate that would have been. Okay, so in a few hours the sun warmed my feet, yet I struggled for months to touch them at all. From the testimony of Lanuus Pregrata. So Lanuus was present. We call them the Nithirian Red. So maybe there's a faction of Nithirians who didn't turn against Sirenai. Many say the cries of anguish loosed that day still linger in the murky waters. The agony of losing Sirenai poisoned the mere hearts as had the deadly oceans, sorrow twisting into bitterness, then hate, until darkness consumed them. Okay, yeah. The Nithirian Red disappeared into the sea, searching for the means to return to true mere form. They're like, no, everything I know was a lie. Now, their brethren were left to pick up the fragments of their past, hoping to fuse them into a future. Yet the fateful day of their arrival is marked by mourning, 1 week prior and 1 week after. Oh, that's cool. So this is setting up in the lore to have like holidays and stuff. Among the ceremony is a reading from the Day of Testimonies, a collection of witness accounts to the lamentable day. Yet there is one creature they blame all things upon, a villain greater than the Nithirian Red, whose vicious actions they rank better than none at all. For there he stood far above us, hovering in the sky, a thing unlike any I had imagined before, a creature who may have never been made. Well, obviously he'd been made because he's up in the sky. High in the air he watched us writhe, the strange salvation of air filtering through our quivering bodies, heaving out the poisonous liquid of Terminus's oceans. That thing we call Ermos. He and his world, Terminus, gouged us of all we love. That thing we call Ermos. So, huge creature in the sky, Ermos, turning even the waters against us. Our own people have slain their lady, and before our very eyes... What do you mean, gouged us of all we love? The Nithirian Reds are the one who went and slaughtered Sirenai after she sacrificed herself for them. Our own people have slain their lady, and before our very eyes he watched it unfold. Though her blood ran over the sands and even under our very bodies, we could not lift ourselves up from the crimson pools for many hours. Because they just got their lung, they got their legs, they're trying to figure out. I mean, they're just trying to, breathe and survive. That is why curse Ermos is our hail, and Ermos be cursed our depart. For though he departed with not a word, We speak his name to accuse him and testify of his crimes. So they're just like, oh, there's a huge creature thing in the sky. He looked on without doing anything. It's his fault, even though we just came to this new world and we couldn't breathe, and then we slaughtered the person who saved us. From the testimony of Vethos Ravika. In the present frail age, the Dark Mirror are seeking to claim the old glories of Isul. They have subdued their realm of the ocean and built a glorious city in honor of Sirenai. Oh, cool. So they have subdued their realm of the ocean, so they were able to now live in the water again? I guess it did say that the Nitherian Red went back into the water, right? So is this going to be an underwater city? That would be cool. Yet beneath the surface of splendor, there is an unsettling current that runs through the deep places where the Dark Mirror have descended like the ancient leviathans they were born to destroy. Okay, yeah, that would be cool if there was a underwater city. All right, on to the dwarves. Oh, wait. Let's do... Man, these guys are, like, vicious and nasty. But they look awesome. All right, well, let's look at the racials. Vestige of Sirenai. Grants underwater breathing and increased swim speed. So they can't... It grants underwater breathing. So is this passively just... They can just breathe underwater completely? I mean, that's what it sounds like. But I don't know how their underwater breathing system is going to work. And increases swim speed. That's really nice. Helpful for underwater play. Perceptive. Increases insight skill by 10 points. Oh. So maybe they're going to... Excuse me. They're going to be able to... perceive more. Oh. Yeah, with the perception system. Embittered Psyche. Increases both stealth effectiveness and awareness by 10 points. So they're able to sense things that are stealthed around them better. And they're able to be stealthy more. That's nice. So they'd make like good rogues. Born of Deep Waters. Grants an innate bonus to anaerobic and pressure acclimation. Darkmere have an advantage against the cunning disposition. Interesting. Anaerobic and pressure. Is that two different ones, or are those lumped together? Like, is anaerobic and pressure one climate, or is anaerobic and pressure separate climates? I'm not sure. All right. Dwarves. Dwarves. Robust and enduring champions of combat and mysticism, the dwarves of Kadasa are fiercely loyal to their king. I like this depiction of dwarves. These guys look really cool. Let's see. On the dwarves. For the good of his people, the dwarven king Kazas sacrificed his immortality to rule among them in the wintry fortress of Kadasa. So yeah, it sounds like the gods are actually present in the lives of their people, which is awesome. Super cool. To rule among them. So he's literally going to be there. Like Kazas is going to be... That's awesome. This selflessness is a crown virtue of the dwarven race, and to have one as a friend is worth more than several lifetimes of fortune. Believing peace is a product of strength, the dwarves seek not an empire, but to increase their mastery in smithing the arcane as well as battle. In smithing the arcane as well as battle. So, like magical stuff and stuff just for war? Cool. Their compact form is rarely mistaken for lumbering stiffness, as their reputation in all types of conflict is widely established. So they are just top-tier warriors. of their tale. Few races can so intimately trace history back to the moment of their creation. Yet so few gods were like Kazas of Oldassa, and so few races show the fealty of his dwarves. For a lone celestial to bring forth a new race is not unheard of. Even among those now on Terminus, such ancestry exists in some number. But no other creation has remained so united with their creator as the dwarves are to their king, and no other celestial has so stewarded their creation as he, forsaken even his own immortality to lead them as their king. This is cool. All right. In the very beginning, it was Kazas who brought together what the dwarves call the balanced pair. This would become the seed of the dwarven people. And the dwarves, the balanced pair. In one hand, he held a fragment of stone from the heart of Coldark Peak, the mountain he himself shaped to be the throne of the Triumvirate. Oh, cool. So is this on Oldassa? In the other hand, he held a shard of the ice of Ryfel, which she gave joyfully to him. Ryfel. Is Ryfel like a goddess, maybe? Which she gave joyfully to him, willing him to add its life to the dwarven people. Locke, and Hammer, okay, were all present, giving their approval. Is this like, so are these like the Pantheon of Oldassa, like the god group? With perfect balance and pressure, Kazas pressed Coldark's fragment and the ice of Ryfel into each other until the resonance and power created by the fusion shook Oldassa's oldest foundations. Then, in a moment, the first dwarves opened their eyes to see the dwarven father. My children. Of all the Pantheon, only Kazas lingered there with them. Okay, so yeah. He stayed with the dwarves for many days, teaching them to care for themselves, warning them of Oldassa's deep winters, and speaking freely with them. So he's literally just walking around. That's really cool. Because usually, gods in most... Gods in most... Well, everything are kind of like these other guys. Like, they just kind of leave and do their own thing, basically. But there existed an old great rift in the triumvirate of three, the ruling pantheon of the dwarves. Razik, called the Rageful, longed to vie against Kazas, though order was ever preserved under the care of Locke, and Hammer. So these three were endowed with neutrality and upheld the Edict of Balance, which forbid any contest within the Pantheon, neither good destroying evil or evil destroying good. Under this decree, Kazas forged the dwarves and blessed them with much of his own character, fashioning their frames with deep strength and their minds with keen perception. Thus, throughout Oldassa, the dwarves flourished, and there were no rivals alongside them. But Razik's jealousy attended their every triumph like a shadow, never ever frustrated when seeking to twist them against Kazas, and his hate aged unquenchable. Of the many new inhabitants on Terminus, so there's races coming from all over, and Terminus, Terminal, I get it. Cool, so everything's coming together. It is believed the dwarves were the first to arrive during the Age of Isolation. They quickly established a foothold in the southern tundra, naming the area Kadasa, meaning Kazas' Reach, after their king. In the same manner he had originally formed the dwarves, Kazas taught them how to perfectly fuse ice and stone, creating a peerless material in strength and beauty known as Coldark Steel. Ooh. Cold dark steel. That's going to be some good stuff in the game. Unbreakable, yet able to be cut thin enough to wear as fabric? Really? So it's almost like Mithril from Lord of the Rings in a sense. It's like super hard, but you can cut it thin enough and... Well, I mean, in Lord of the Rings it was like a chainmail vest, but its properties were similar in that it's super light. I mean, this could all be cold dark steel fabric. Cool. Unbreakable but able to be cut. I wonder how they cut it. With it, they built their magnificent Oldasan citadel in the heart of Kadasa. So a big cold dark steel fortress, the Oldasan citadel. From that beacon, their legacy as champions, mystics, artisans, storytellers, and unfailing companions has flourished, unabated by the storms of change that roll across the planet. Yet there dwells a hidden terror in their story, one whom even Causus himself would not dare approach. Something to do with Razik, maybe? The Rageful? Interesting. Alright, let's look at their racials. Fortitude. Dwarves gain extra hit points from each point of stamina. Wow. More health. Very fitting. Grip of the Dwarven Father. Grants immunity to disarm. Huh. So these are going to make like the best warriors, basically. Well, like not being able to be disarmed. And obviously disarm is a thing, because this grants immunity to disarm. That's going to be really useful, I think. Ice and Stone. Innate bonus to cold resistance, frigid, and toxic acclimation. It's like each race that we're going through is gaining like an extra kind of help towards this acclimation. It's like, it feels like the Archai get one based on what they choose. Like, oh, fire. I'm a fire person, so I get help towards fire. These guys get cold, frigid, and toxic. Mountain Forged increases blunt weaponry skills by 10 points. So yeah, you want to be using those hammers. And other things that fall under the blunt weaponry skill. Cool. Elves. Oh my gosh. There's a lot to the elves. Elves. Long afflicted, the elves now mourn and flourish under the council rule of Fair Thale and the brilliance of the lucent tree. On the elves. With a loyalty that is not easily won or lost, elves carry an immortal sense of how fleeting life is, born of their own brushes with total extinction. Born of their own brushes with total extinction. But far more than frail survivors, they are unrivaled artists from architecture to agriculture, with arcane and physical prowess as natural as the wind, rain, and storm. Sibling hearts divide the race into two distinct groups. Ashen Elves, steward, Fair Thale from within, eternally vigilant and watch and guard, while their Ember brethren cast an aggressive eye towards the surrounding lands, rooting out evil where it resides. So they're going... So yeah, two different factions. Ashen Elves are the guards and are around the city. The Embers want to... Aggressive eye. That sounds like they want to go out and claim more land, for the elves. To understand the elves of Fair Thale rightly, one must walk among the pages of their ancestors. It is a thick opus, full with triumphs and tragedies, begun long before their kind sat upon Terminus. On the planet Ceolaean, the elves lived as one great host for 1,000 years, mastering battle, trade, and the arcane. Power was concentrated into the three realms, Guardian North, Fertile West, and Orchestral South. Yet an age of unmitigated pestilence fractured their unity, and in a climax of unrest, the militant cities of the north laid waste to the richer lands in the west. Oof. They were not of one mind. The north had their eyes on the fertile west, for the north deemed themselves suffering unequally. Any disparity was owed to their own mishandlings and greedy authorities, yet they prodded themselves with false rumors of the West's secret provisions. Unifying with the demonic beasts of Tor they had so long protected our three realms against, the northern elves marched upon their brothers without mercy. Thus, they are now the Tormentiri? The Tormentiri, a severed host cut off from elvenhood for all of time. So the north, instead of holding back the Tor, they just joined with them. And they're like, let's go raid the fertile west. Taken from the Sefer Seolayan. Taken from the Sefer Seolayan? Wasn't Seolayan... the planet on the planet Seolayan? Taken from the Sefer Seolayan. Under this calamity, the elven gods Aelos and Dithir led its survivors to a lush valley far in the east, the forgotten hollow of race's birth. The sight which greeted the refugees melted their sorrow like a radiant dawn. A tree of such enormous size it was at first mistaken for a mountain laden with clouds. Up from the heart of the teeming valley, the regal tree soared, arrayed in animal and vegetative life, prismatic rainbows and falling streams. The base was half a day's journey around, even upon the swiftest horse. So powerful was the trunk in its ascent that slabs of great rocks from far below the valley soil had been pulled up into sired ridges. So this thing just... The four highest branches stretched out like bridges in the sky, though they did not altogether span the chasm of the valley. From each of the four chief limbs fell the fruit of a season. So this tree is like a big tree of life. Leaves made of snow, blossoms of drifting rain, blooms of tangible heat, drifts of reds and golds that swirled like sands on the valley floor. There was a storm cloud caught between two branches, flashing glints within its folds. Through the knuckles of the cavernous roots below flowed the emerald river Nylene. Or is it Enylene? Anchoring the four resplendent regions in fertility. This was Lumos, the second dawn. Sefer Seolayan. Anchoring the four resplendent regions in fertility. This was Lumos. So I'm a little confused at that. What is Lumos? The four resplendent regions in fertility? Because the river is called Nylene. I'm a little confused at that. Yet in short decades, the ravenous Tormentiri tracked their divorced brothers to this bountiful new home. Oh, is Lumos this whole area? The lush valley that the elven gods Aeolus and Dithir led the survivors to? Maybe that's what it meant. Yet in short decades, the ravenous Tormentiri tracked their divorced brothers to this bountiful new home. Hollowed by hatred and joining indistinguishable ranks with the beasts of Tor, they razed the valley with infernal flame. By the end of their siege, even Lumos was scorched and dying. The elves took Even Lumos was scorched. Oh, is Lumos the tree? The big tree? Maybe? The elves took flight into the lands of pestilence as desperate nomads. In this morning hour they took as their namesake the Ashen, painting their faces from elder to infant with cinders of Lumos itself. Yet Dythir pulled the heartseed of Lumos from the desecrated tree and gave it to the Ashen elves, while Aeolus bestowed a twofold prophecy, declaring that the seed would be planted anew in foreign lands. Thus the elven era of Terminus began, with promise. Once a home was secured in the clefts of the Rowan Mountains, the heartseed was planted with solemn ceremony. This tree they named Lucent, the third light. Okay. We planted anew in foreign lands. Thus the elven era of Terminus began with promise. So they must have got portaled over to Terminus at some point. Unless this area that they're in... Well, no, because this is on their planet of Seolan. In these first months upon the land, a new government was formed. There would now be a council of 9 branches, each with equal authority, with one from the 9 to oversee impartially. Thus there could be no reprise of the solitary guardian north, nor a west unaccounted for. Yet so winnowed were our ranks in the first years that some barely older than children served on council for their trade. Sefer Terminus. Over the hundreds of interweaving years, the Ashen Elves grew alongside the mountain and the Lucent. Yet fate did not abide the sanctuary, and with the Deicide War. With the Deicide War, the Revenant ravaged Kingsreach much like the Tormentiri of old did the Eastern Valley. Once more the elves were forced to flee. Once more their holy tree was burned alive. When the battle turned in their favor, the whole of the nation ran from the silent sanctum to their tortured giant, placing innumerable hands upon the trunk. There they felt a soft warmth, not from smoldering husk, but from the deepest part within. From the posture of lament we erupted, snatched from grief over to joy. It was felt the glow of the heartseed drawing up through the fissures of axe heads, below the skin curled by the departed revenant flames. The tree was wounded but alive, and thus was fair Thale herself. This day became the chief holiday on our calendar, with the feasts running a week prior and after the date. Sefer Terminus. Cool. In that hour, a new branch of elf sprung from the Ashen. These are the Ember, a vibrant class who seek to return their people to the ancient days of promise on Seolaeum. Seolaeum? Seolaeum. I think that's a typo. Before the age of pestilence. These contrast with the Ashen, who seek only to prosper within the 5 forests around Fair Thale, ambitions counterweighted by memories of the many elven sorrows. The 2 veins of elvenhood coexist even now, though days may be drawing near that will bond them further or tear them apart. For there is the second half to Aeolus' prophecy, which warned of a 3rd inferno for the elven race. The Ashen believe the Revenant fulfilled that requirement in blood and flame. Ember disciples aggressively protest that interpretation, claiming the 3rd crucible is yet to come. Cool. Let's look at their racials. Lucent Ancestry. I feel like these are getting longer and longer as I go along as well. Okay, Lucent Ancestry. Grants innate resistance to nature magic and increases the effectiveness of nature abilities. So really good nature magic. Nimble. Increases the effectiveness of skills and abilities modified by agility. Wonder how many... I mean, that's pretty broad. Elves have an advantage against the true sight disposition. Another disposition. Nice. Ember Elves. Oh, okay. So then you get to choose which one you want to align yourself with at character creation, probably. Ember Elves, unflinching. Or maybe not align yourself with, but I guess come from as your background. Ember Elves, unflinching. Grants an innate 20% chance to resist knockdown and knockback abilities. That's huge. 20% is a big number. Deafness. Grants extra attack rating from each point of dexterity. Wow. 20%. Ashen Elves, deep recitation. Grants an innate 20% chance to resist spell interruption and counterspell abilities. Okay, so this one's more like if you want to be melee up in the fight, you won't get knocked back or knocked down as easily. And this one is you won't get your... If you're a magic user, you won't get your spells resisted or interrupted. Wait, to resist spell... Or yeah, so... Grants a chance to resist spell interruption and counterspell abilities. So, and then Sagacious. Ashen Elves gain extra spell rating from each point of wisdom. Nice. Really nice. Alright, how many are left? I might split this into 2 videos. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've only been through 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. Gnomes. Let's do gnomes. And then I will save Halflings, Humans, Ogres, Scar for part 2. Just because this video is getting really long. Alright, gnomes. Let's go through gnomes. Gnomes. Enigmatic. Excuse me. I'm going to have to take a drink real quick. Alright. Gnomes. Enigmatic and isolated within the floating keep of the Skyhold. Whoa. You're in like a city in the sky? The gnomes are masters of the arcane and the peculiar. Elemental pets? That's cool. I want to be this. Gnomes. This one is like red fiery. These are like, these are like constructs almost. Like, it's just like this energy. It's almost like the energy is bound by like this armor that they're wearing to make them look like these humanoids. It's a really cool design. I want to get this pet, whatever that is. Alright, on the gnomes. It is a splendid irony that the smallest of the foreign races contains the most mystery. Peerless in understanding and wielding of the arcane, the gnomes are beings without true physical form due to the events on their homeworld, meticulous and easily absorbed in the many tasks aboard their floating city ship Skyhold. Nice. Excuse me. Diligence and service tend to be the highest gnome virtues, along with sound innovation. Expansion is not a cultural aim, and the gnomes have no real enemies, but some do long to face the perils and prizes of Terminus at large. So they're totally cool with just, hey, we're just going to stay up here in our floating city and really just kind of, tend to ourselves. But some do want to go and kind of explore the world. Of their tale. Alas, Stormona, this rare planet known as a sun world, formed from the inside out? Wow. Her very mass was grafted together in a sphere around a thimble of a star named Elos, like a pearl gathering an oyster over itself. Through a handful of colder, distant stars shined upon Stormona. Oh, through a handful of colder, distant stars. Through a handful of colder, distant stars shined upon Stormona. Is this supposed to be though? Its outer crust endured under a shadowy veil of dimness like a forgotten bride. Through a handful of colder, distant stars. I think this is a typo, or it's not making sense to me. For centuries, the gnomes toiled under the constant dusk of the five. Oh, now I'm getting my dyslexia. For centuries, the gnomes toiled under the constant dusk of the far stars, surviving not by individual might, but a collective inertia that conquered challenges of every scale. Yet an ancient myth persisted amongst the race. It spoke of a moment occurring but once a generation, when the far stars would abandon Stormona, briefly and true night would fall upon their lands. In that sudden darkness, up through the very ground would whisper faint hues of light, the call of Elos, the one near star. So Elos is the little star that Stormona created itself around. A splinter of the native gnomes held onto the myth as truth, and on the long-awaited twilight they entered fissures in the metallic soil of the crust. Here they beheld refracted flickers of radiant light coming from deep beneath the surface of their dim planet. Our course was set when the first ray warmed the eyes of the first gnome. From that moment, it was only a question of finding the fire. Vithar the Minder. So a curious race. They're like, ooh, light, warmth. What's over there? Let's check it out. This discovery touched off the first rift in gnomon history, of which there are two, for by the time the travelers returned, the dusk light of the far stars had as well. So I wonder how long that was. Was it just a couple hours? Was it like several years? The eldership of the gnomes was sundered over their account of Elos's existence. That's a weird way to describe. The eldership of the gnomes was sundered over their account of Elos's existence. This discord was evidenced by a single bright stone brought from the depths and presented to the council. For half of their number, the stone was rebuked as ordinary. I gotta read this again. This discord was evidenced by a single bright stone brought from the depths. So these gnomes went in, got a chunk of the rock, and brought it back out. For half of their number, the stone was rebuked as ordinary and dead. For the remainder, however, it was hailed as glowing and alive, albeit faint. Thus, when, for the first time in its history, the eldership could reach no accord, it was disbanded, permitting the growing number of gnomes to return to the search for Elos. It was disbanded, permitting them. So they were like, we can't really make a decision on what this is, so it doesn't matter. And then more gnomes are like, oh, hey, we want to go look for it too. Shortly after launch, the hopeful exploration was mired in tragedy as the gnomes learned they could venture but only so far towards Elos at a time. Their eyes were untrained for such light, which grew stronger, so they had to get acclimated. Their eyes were untrained for such light, which grew stronger as they neared and burned many blind at first. Their skin, too dense from the cold of the outer surface, left their bodies faint from the heat of Elos's rays. Thus it was a patient descent, stretched over many generations, that brought the gnomes to the door of the near star at last. When their elderhood finally... So this took generations, multiple generations. When their elderhood finally permitted breaking through the inner crust, there drew a sight beyond imagination. Settled in an open expanse was the majestic Elos, with small planets orbiting about it in undisturbed choreography. So they broke down into the crust and they finally opened up. It was hollow with the star in the middle and the chunks and chunks of rocks was circling it on the inside of the planet. Wow. Cool. The walls of this cavernous sphere were lined with a glowing mineral new to the gnomes, which they learned held the power of Elos fire. This mineral they named Reservoir, for it held deposits of arcane energy which could be drawn back out and into the very body of a gnome. So they can absorb it. The powers and abilities it granted were far beyond any warrior or mage. These wielders of Elos fire became known as the Arcanas. Yet this otherworldly paradise, which ought to have been beyond blemish, ushered in the second rift amongst the gnomes. All too quickly, the powers of Elos fire were sought in gluttonous measure by the Arcanas, their personal cravings overtaking a discernment for all gnomes. Foreseeing disaster, a splinter of the gnomes petitioned the Elderhood to restrict the use of Elos fire, pleading that the gnomes retreat for a brief time outside the inner crust. These were called profane by the Arcanos hierarchy, a name concocted from accusation and mockery. Though the profane spoke with earnest fear for their brothers and sisters, the allure of the Arcanos crushed their justified concerns. The profane were exiled into a floating prison known as the Skyhold. Fated to circle Elos till she consumed them. This airborne expanse was built of spent reservoir, though the Arcanos critically misunderstood that reservoir could be infused anew. For years, the profane painstakingly extracted the resource, constructing a pillar within the heart of the Skyhold of pure reservoir. Therein they stored a measure of Elos fire. Yet as they labored in secret, the Arcanos worked ever more madly to draw ethereal power from the star. To this end they constructed spires of pure reservoir, aiming the immense towers directly at Elos, sapping power beyond the natural limits the star freely gave. So they made this huge conduits, basically, and we're just sucking the power of the star out. For gazing too long, we lost the ability to see. For taking too much, we lost the ability to feel. These grave indiscretions transfigured us into gossamer, wisp things. Many did not even comprehend the peril until after the door of their escape had sealed. I saw their faces as they perished, which were gleeful and serene. And were it not my lot to be woken, I too would have faded in a furious bliss and vanished. Kelos, the Unburdener. The gorge of her energy began to weaken Elos, loosing the bonds of her power in devastating surges. As her unbridled rays struck the inner crust, many of the gnomes were consumed, yet the Skyhold, built to lock the profane away until death, bore well against the lashes of Elos for a time. When a giant hole was struck straight through the crusts of Stormona, the exiled gnomes piloted the structure through it, escaping to the quiet atmosphere of their ancestors. Yet survival had not been perfect, as the bristling energy in the reservoir continued to sift through the Skyhold. A dire conclusion was reached by the gnomes. They must abandon their mortal flesh or perish. With the very power that was afflicting our bodies, we were able to repossess our souls into the reservoir cloth called Makesh. This garment, woven from the hollowed mineral, was meant to further our survival as we drew nearer to Elos, though we knew it could not preserve us against her final embrace. Juth, the Teller. When deposited on Terminus, the Skyhold floated undisturbed. I wonder how they are getting into Terminus. I'm just imagining these big portals opening up and they're just going there. But the question is why and how? The Skyhold floated undisturbed above White Thaw. I think that's one of the continents. For nearly 50 years, a deep resonant hum slowly bore an inverted cone in the snow directly underneath the hulk. Deep resonant hum slowly bore an inverted cone in the snow. So it's digging into it in a cone shape, or it's raising it up. Slowly bore. Bore is like digging into. But an inverted cone in the snow directly underneath the hulk. Otherwise the ship roosted in the skies with silent unconcern. Now with modest access for wayfarers, it stands as the capital city of the gnomes, striking in its inorganic majesty, begging more questions than the race cares to answer. Like, why does it look like a prison? Terminus has brought a return to the unified workman traits of their ancient brothers and sisters, and the gnomes may not have been so at peace in all their existence. Yeah, these guys look really cool. Let's look at their racials, and we'll call this video good for tonight. And we'll do a part 2 tomorrow. Let's see. Incantation Mastery grants an innate 20% chance to resist silence. Okay. Enigmatic Brilliance. Gnomes gain extra mana from each point of intelligence, so they make really good mana users. Ethereal Being increases dodge chance by 3%. I wonder how high you're able to get that, and if dodging will actually be a thing in the game rather than just it always feels so in MMOs. Dodge in the MMOs I've played, dodge has always seemed kind of like a throwaway stat where it's in the game, but you don't really feel it. You don't really feel like you're dodging a lot. So hopefully they make dodge cool. And like if you get high dodge, like you should noticeably, I think, be able to dodge stuff. So anyway, Constant Scholar increases the rate at which skills improve. Whoa. just in general, just any skill, all skills. I wonder what the rate is. Because that's, I mean, just every skill. Gnomes have an advantage against the masterminded disposition. Nice. Yeah, okay, gnomes are cool. Yeah. Alright, we'll get to halflings tomorrow. And I'm going to call that for tonight. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.